Have you ever wanted to be a host on an ACA show or be the one calling the shots behind the scenes? Are you in Austin, Texas, or at least Austin adjacent? Well, on Saturday, February 25th, make your way down to the Free Thought Library because we'll be holding open auditions for show hosts and orientations for prospective crew members. For those wanting to be hosts, you'll be able to sit in the studio where our shows are broadcast and we'll put you through your paces to see if you can be one of the new personalities of the ACA. For future crew members, you'll get hands-on experience using the equipment used for broadcast and will help us record the host auditions. If you've ever dreamed of being part of the ACA productions, then this is your chance to show us what you've got. This event is free. For more information and registration, visit tiny.cc/ACA auditions.
Look at that beautiful, beautiful crowd we have today. Hello, everybody. I am Objectively Dan, and this is Talk Heathen. We are live in studio today. It is January 29th, 2023, and I'm here today with somebody all the way from Michigan, United States of America. It's Kelley Laughlin, everybody. Kelley Laughlin.
It's really a pleasure to do my first show with you in the studio.
That's right. Well, yeah, we did just do a show together for Truth Wanted the other day, so you should definitely check that out if you haven't already. But Kelley,
that was some good stuff.
It was a good time. Kelley is a occasional guest host on Truth Wanted and also host of the Nonprofits, the of course flagship show of the Atheist community of Austin. And we haven't met in person at all until like
Friday.
2 days ago. Yeah. So
yeah.
It's been cool hanging out with you, and it's cool having you here in Austin. So you enjoying your time?
I am having a wonderful time.
Great.
Everybody's treating me like a celebrity. I feel like I'm somebody. It's awesome.
Well, Kelley is a very cool person. So we're really glad that you're here. And of course, we are glad that you are here because this is a live call-in show. We would love to talk to you. So and we have a couple open lines right now. So you can call in at 512-991-9242, or you can call in your computer at tiny.cc/call TH. We would love to have you. Of course, Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, and secular humanism, and also the separation of religion and government. There's a couple of different ways you can support this program if you like it. One of them is supporting it on Patreon, tiny.cc/PatreonTH. You can also like the video and subscribe. Make sure you enable notifications and comment below on your favorite caller. You can also become a channel member if you'd like to do that. You can click the join button below the video. You get custom chat emotes for that, and also you help perpetuate the mission of Talk Heathen in the atheist community of Austin. You can do that for as little as 99 cents a month, by the way, so check that out. One other thing before we get going here is that below the live chat, we do have a fundraiser. 100% of the proceeds go directly to the Atheist community of Austin. YouTube does not charge any fees for that. So today's goal is, of course, $666 with no numerological or historical, political references whatsoever.
No
just
connection.
A random number that we picked out of the blue. So, Kelley, you're here, man. You're here.
I am here.
You're here, and you're live, and it's happening. So you ready to take some calls?
I am totally ready to take calls. Looking forward to it, actually.
All right, cool. We got a couple people who want to talk to us. I think this is going to be an interesting one. Let's see. We got Rick, who is calling in from Oregon. Rick, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
Hey, guys. What's up? Thanks for taking my call.
Of course, Rick. So I see here that you believe that there is scientific evidence of a creator. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, we like science.
Yeah.
Kelley's a big science guy.
Yeah, I'm actually a practicing scientist, believe it or not.
So we'd love to hear what you got.
What type of science do you practice?
I'm a geologist.
Oh, great, excellent, great field.
Thanks.
Yeah. You could say that Kelley really rocks.
You could.
Know?
You could say
that. So anyway, so what do you got for us, Rick?
Oh, I'm just trying to figure out why you all don't don't subscribe into like an intelligent design type of.
Well, why should we?
Universe.
Yeah, I still haven't seen the evidence for it, but if you've got it, please give it to me. Give it to us.
Well, there's a lot of evidence, specifically the biggest one, of course, is DNA.
So why is DNA evidence of a creator?
Oh, where did it come from?
My DNA came from my parents.
DNA originally came from a mixture of amino acids and proteins.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Like, you know, you can completely describe the way that I get my DNA from the biological processes that life begets life. Now, of course, that asks the question, well, where does life come from? And we don't know all the answers to that yet. We have some ideas, but it seems to be natural in origins. Every explanation that we have so far and every hypothesis that we can look at through a natural lens. There doesn't have to be a creator that has to be involved in any of that process.
What he said.
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, like I think the universe had a mother. You know, I think the universe was created, not specifically by God, so I can't claim to be a theist. But most of the greatest scientists all pretty much came to the conclusion that the universe had an intelligent design. Even
that's not true at all. Well, I don't know where you got that idea.
Yeah, which ones? Because I mean, like, you know, I'm sure there are definitely scientists that believe that the universe has a creator, absolutely. But for every scientist that believes that the universe has a creator, I can definitely find you a scientist that doesn't.
And
right?
if you're talking about scientists 100, 200 years ago, yeah, a lot of them did back then, but it's not very common within science today because we have learned a lot more than we knew 150, 200 years ago.
Kind of going in the wrong. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because they're going in the wrong direction, and that's going to be harder and harder.
Well, wait a minute. When you say we're going in the wrong direction, but we're actually doing research. We're gathering data, and we're taking ourselves in the direction
what do you say we? Well, I don't want to cut you off, but when you say we, I've been studying this for a long time. So we, are you considering like yourself? How do you define?
I already told you I was a scientist. So when I say we, I'm talking about scientists.
So am I.
And I'm not. And again, Dan asked you to give us some examples of scientists who are backing up what you're saying. So, but because I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know who you're talking about. I honestly don't.
Well, like I said, Einstein is very. I mean, you're talking about I said today's scientists are really going away from that, and I think that's going to make it more and more.
Well, we're not going away from that idea. We're going to where the evidence and the data leads us.
Yeah.
Right now, the evidence and the data is actually. The evidence in the data is actually leading us away from the idea of a deity or a creator
but.
Can you please?
We, but me.
I've already explained why I'm saying we. Okay, so please, just stop that argument because it's not going anywhere. I'm saying we because I am a scientist, and scientists are moving away from that idea. That's why I'm using the collective we. I already explained that. I thought we got past that point. Now, again, if you have scientists from today who are backing up what your belief, I would love to hear who it is.
Oh no, that's like I said. I think that's the biggest problem in science today, and they're kind of going back to that Big Bang theory, and there's no way they'll ever figure out.
So this is interesting, Rick, because you started off by saying, well, there's lots of scientists that believe this stuff, and when we asked you, okay, which ones, you're saying, oh, well, all the scientists are going away. Doesn't that mean that you should? I mean, if you're citing the scientists, if you're using an argument for authority. And we're now saying, oh, scientists are actually going away from it. Why aren't you listening to the scientists? Because you were happy to use them whenever they, supported your belief that there was a God, right?
I listen to all scientists. I listen to Stephen Hawking, Roger Penrose. I listen to all the scientists.
So when Stephen Hawking says he doesn't believe in the Christian God, right? Why is that?
Well, Christian God is ridiculous, and they even bring that up is an insult to me and you. But No, I believe I mean Hawking was one. I mean I had a relationship with Hawking, and yes, and we disagreed on that quite vehemently.
Okay. Well, I just don't understand. If do the opinions of scientists matter or not? Because if they do, then you agree
Absolutely.
that okay,
absolutely they matter. Absolutely they matter. But collectively, they don't agree. All agree on that. I mean,
but there is a broad consensus, and that's the point. Is that when 98% of the people agree.
Right. Well, geocentrism, there was 99% of the people agreed with that for 2,000 years. There was a broad consensus on
Yeah, but that was like before science came about, right? I mean, let's face it. You're bringing up things that are not relevant to the conversation now. And if we're going to talk about science, let's stay within the time period that science was created, say from the late 1600s to today.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with that too, right, with like geocentrism is they were looking at observations at the time and correlating it with beliefs, right? But even then, first of all, not everybody agreed in geocentrism even back then. There were ideas as ancient as the Greeks that were talking about heliocentric models of the universe. But besides that point, right, the reason why we have models like the Big Bang, for example, is because we have more evidence towards the Big Bang than any other model of cosmology ever, period. Like the scientific community, first of all, isn't in disagreement on the Big Bang, right? Physicists... Rick, let me finish here, right? Physicists are not in disagreement as to whether or not cosmological events like the Big Bang happen. There's the details, sure, right? But like as far as the universe existing like 14 billion years, the Earth existing for another couple billion, like that's not in disagreement. There's no like widespread controversy in the scientific community on those facts, right?
Well, I kind of disagree with that. My mentor, Sir Fred Hoyle, totally disagree with all.
I will admit there are outliers, but when you like, as I said, when there's 98% consensus on something, that 2% really doesn't matter that much.
That popularity dictates.
No, what I'm arguing is that after reviewing the data and the research, that 98% of the scientists have reached a consensus.
Yeah. And Fred Hoyle, by the way, had ideas that other scientists have also called into question, right? So it's not like we're saying, oh, he's this pure scientist who had no other motivations whatsoever, you know, like you know. But the thing about science, right, is that we don't have
and his steady state theory was pretty much disproven, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying.
Exactly.
I'm just saying that nobody ever went to the actual data and looked at the evidence specifically. What they did was they went to a theory.
Wow.
Nobody
went to the evidence.
Wait, where do you think the data and the evidence that came from without somebody looking at it?
Well, let me explain. The data is pretty simple. The data is really simple, and the problem is simple. We have atoms, galaxy, and space in an expanding universe with CMB, and that's it. There is nothing else. See, if you just took that problem and tried to figure it out, they'd be able to figure it out. But instead, they went to Lemaitre. What happened is, you know, the expanding space was one part of Lemaitre's prediction, and so was CMB. And but Einstein was still alive during the expanding space period, so nothing really came of it. But in '65, when CMB was discovered, that's when everybody jumped on board, and Einstein was dead, so he couldn't refute anything. So Penrose and Hawking.
Do you think that Einstein was 100% accurate in everything he did? Or do you think he was just 100% accurate with the knowledge that he... Please don't cut me off. Please don't cut me off. Or do you think that he was 100% accurate with the knowledge and the data that he had during the time that he was alive? And that we may have learned more since then, and so we can change the ideas of... we can know that our past scientists may have been wrong because we have new data?
Well, specifically what I'm saying is Einstein knew he was wrong when Schwarzschild came out and proved a singularity to his general relativity solution, because he knew at that point that it was wrong, okay? And he knew at that point that it was going to be superseded. And that's exactly, he knew he was wrong with the cosmological constant as well. He was probably the most humble scientist out there. He knew he was wrong. He would pretty much let you know he was wrong. So he was wrong. He said it.
Okay. Look, I mean, whether or not, I mean, look, every person who's ever even contributed to the history of physics or really science in general has probably been wrong about some things, right? Like, you're talking about Fred Hoyle, right? Again, Fred Hoyle is also somebody, and I know you said you disagree with his other ideas, but also had like a particle theory of gravity and stuff, right? Like, I mean, like he had also other ideas that the scientific community just doesn't hold into consensus anymore, right? Or doesn't regard as truth. So I don't understand why you think steady state theory somehow has more merit. Like, why does steady state theory have more merit than, let's say, the particle theory for gravity, right?
No, it doesn't. I pretty much said earlier that it's pretty much the existence of quasars pretty much, and the CMB was determined to be black body isotropic radiation. So yeah, those two things totally contradict his theory. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused. What are we talking about?
I've been
then?
confused for about 2 or 3 minutes now.
Because I thought you weren't a believer of the Big Bang theory.
No, the Big Bang is almost ridiculous as Genesis, in my opinion.
Okay,
actually, more ridiculous than Genesis. The entire Earth is going to be into an infinitely dense point. That's infinitely dense singularity. It's not even something that any real scientist should be. And I don't even think the Big Bang even qualifies as scientific theory. I mean, there's no falsifiability, there's no abductive reasoning. And
so Rick, I got just something you just said.
And Occam's razor doesn't even come into play because there's only 2 people in the world that can really.
But something you just said, no real scientist would believe in the Big Bang. Are you calling me out and telling me I'm not a real scientist?
Well, I mean, if you pretty much were, I think you have an ideology, and I think you were kind of like, it's the thing is the kind of
you don't know anything about me, Rick. You're like putting stuff on me, and you know nothing about me, and I don't feel that's fair.
Maybe I misspoke. I'm sorry about that. I think I was trying to stay with. I think you guys are incredible. I think the way you handle all of these debates and I might have misspoke. In my opinion, it doesn't make any sense. It's ontologically nonsense.
I would say you misspoke, considering you just accused Kelley, who you've just now met for the first time and just now figured out he's a scientist who happens to have an opinion that disagrees with you, that somehow he has an ideology. Now, I imagine, Rick, if Kelley came on the screen here and said, well, I actually agree with you, you wouldn't accuse him of an ideology. But somehow, isn't that interesting how that works?
Yeah.
That because Kelley has a different opinion than you.
And can I point out something else, Rick? You did call us with your ideology.
Yeah. I mean, having an ideology, that's fine. If you want to call in and talk about it, sure, we can talk about the differences that we have and why we should believe one or the other. But we've been talking for about, how long has it been? Over 10 minutes now? And I haven't heard a single reason why I shouldn't believe in the Big Bang theory, other than, you think these scientists are wrong because, the evidence doesn't match up with your expectations, which...
Actually, didn't he call in to give us scientific proof of a...
Yeah.
First of all,
Cause creator was supposed to be scientific evidence of a creator, but look, let's even this, right? I'm not a scientist. Okay, I don't have a PhD. I don't even have a master's. I'm not qualified to determine whether or not the evidence you have presenting or whatever is going to be, agreeable to the physical sciences as a whole, right? I'm not qualified. Okay, I have a liberal arts degree. I can't make that distinction. But what I can do is look at what scientists are saying right now and what evidence that they put forward, and that fact that you say, the Big Bang theory is not falsifiable. Well, it's not falsifiable in the sense where we can't have multiple universes and observe, see these experimentations. But it does make predictions about things. It does make predictions about what we should expect to see in the universe, where we should see certain clusters of galaxies and planets and other kinds of things, right? And that's where
that goes.
Excuse me?
But name one besides that. No. Galaxy clusters and filaments go exactly against that theory.
He just told you he's not a physicist or an astrophysicist. I don't know. You're asking him for details.
He just claimed to say those predictions. One prediction.
But it does, though. It does. How does it not?
That's what makes science science. One of the things that makes it science is that it can be predictive, right?
Yeah. You name me one prediction.
Well, I just told you. People are able to make it an average of what they expect to see. Whenever the Hubble telescope looks out into the distance, you're able to determine exactly, not exactly, but an average of how many types of filaments and clusters, as you talked about, you'll be able to see, and that's what it's able to do. And also, it also explains the fact that we see cosmic background radiation, like Big Bang Theory accounts for that.
CMB.
Yeah.
Well, CMB was the reason for the theory to begin with. Okay, but I'm saying there's been zero predictions. Not only that, not only has there been zero predictions of the Big Bang, every single prediction contradicts the model, and that's why they came.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah. What you're talking about? Every prediction, what you said, the cluster.
Okay, you said every prediction. Just give us one example.
Which predictions?
Give us just one example.
Well, they have no predictions. There were no all the predictions.
So you can't.
So every prediction is wrong, but they have no predictions.
So I don't.
I'm confused.
I'm confused again too. This call has been really confusing me a lot. If all the predictions are opposite of what we're being predicted, I'm just asking you to give me one example of a prediction that wasn't real, wasn't true.
The observations are contradictory.
That's not an example. That's just a statement. I'm asking for, give me an example of where
galaxy clusters.
Okay, and why? Yeah, you just shouted out a noun. I'm wondering what the noun has to do with what we're talking about.
Well, that goes against the model entirely.
So, okay, well, I'll tell you what, Rick. Why don't you submit your paper to whatever university you want, and you let the people who can really make that determination go look at that, and you have that conversation with them. If you're trying to convince me, however, without having published anything or whatever, like I don't have any reason why I should believe you other than anybody else that says, oh, this just doesn't work. It's what it sounds like, Rick. I feel like I'm having a conversation with somebody that just says, oh, evolution doesn't work. It doesn't, it doesn't account for things. Well, why? Why doesn't it account for things? And then it's like, evolution accounts for a lot of things. Again, that's another example of a theory that, yes, it's not predictive in the classical sense. I can't run experiments. Well, there are people that run experiments on evolution. But I can't run the human race back over again and see if we would come out the same way or anything like that. But the theory of evolution does account for the observations that we see. And in the same way, again, we talk about the cosmic microwave background radiation, and also, with what we see with galaxy clusters and stuff. Again, there's some. I know that there are some issues that people's trying to figure out. For example, like why, how gravity exactly plays a role into it, right? There's other ideas, but. Again, I'm looking towards what the people who are smarter than me and who have studied this for much longer than me are saying, and that's what they're saying, and that's all I can hope to do, unless I become an astrophysicist myself.
That's the reason why I didn't want to bring out specific examples, because I didn't think you'd be able to, answer them like the.
Well, then why call me about it?
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to if you're going to call in and say I have proof, and then not give us that proof, why call? I don't get it. It's kind of strange.
You asked for specific contradictions, and I was trying to get into.
Well, I'm still waiting for specific proof that there's a creator deity, an intelligent creator.
Yeah, that's what the call screener put down that you were originally going to call, that you have scientific evidence of a creator.
We got off the track and we went into the Big Bang theory.
Yeah, well, you said it was DNA, and that's how we got off the track, because we didn't accept that as proof. I don't understand how DNA is any kind of proof of that.
The existence of DNA does not demonstrate.
Well, how does DNA?
Look, I already answered this. My DNA came from my parents. That's it. That's how that happened. Well,
that's exactly how this universe came from its parents. Exactly.
We don't know.
You proved my.
We don't know. We don't know.
I don't think.
Well,
I'm comfortable in saying that I don't know at present. Now, it may be 1,000 years in the future we may know. Maybe we'll know tomorrow.
Yeah.
But as of right now, we don't know. And when you say you have proof of something that we don't know, you're going to have to provide that proof before we're going to believe it.
Yeah, and also DNA has nothing to do with the creation of the universe or whatever. I don't know how that's related, but okay.
Oh, I can tell you.
I'm sure you could. You've had 20 minutes to do so.
All right. Well, okay. Well, we kind of got thrown off the track. I was trying to answer your question.
All right, let's do it. Let's give it the elevator test. We're stuck in the elevator for 10 floors. Tell us what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you familiar with binary fission?
Binary what?
Fission.
Binary fission? I'm not sure what binary fission is. What is that? What does that mean?
How prokaryotes.
Yeah, it's this like an amoeba becoming two amoebas.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know
okay,
that.
how does that prove a creator?
Oh, come on, guys. Are you going to give me you say we're in an elevator for 10 minutes.
I don't know how that I honestly do not know how that
cell division? What does cell division have to do with
I'm just asking a simple question here. I'm trying to go.
You're not supposed to. We're asking the questions. You're supposed to be giving us the answers.
Yeah,
That's
we want to know.
Called in for to give us the answer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It doesn't sound like you can be very accepting or
you haven't given us anything to accept yet. I'm sorry, but you just haven't.
All right. I'll say so. That's how prokaryotes divide.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
That's binary fission. Now, before that process happens, the cell grows in size, expands twice its size, and then divides.
All right.
And that's the expansion of the universe. That's the entire universe is in my view, after many years of study,
a giant prokaryote,
cellular macrocosm. Expansion is what you get, and then bang, a split.
Why?
And that would be isotropic black body radiation.
Why should I believe that?
That's what I'm just telling you from what.
That's what we want to know.
Dude, I have people just tell me all kinds of stuff, but without any proof, I'm not going to believe any of it.
That's just an analogy. You're just saying cells divide, and that's what I think the universe did. Okay, but why? Like, all we care about is the why.
I can give you examples of all of it. Give me a specific question.
No. I don't want examples. I want to know why I should believe this belief. It's really simple, Rick.
Oh, why should you believe it?
Yes, why should I believe
all the scientific evidence. Because all the scientific evidence points that way.
So the scientific evidence points towards the universe being a giant cell that divides itself, or like a cell. I don't even know if you're using a literal example or an analogy at this point.
No, it's literal. It's literal.
Okay, it's literally a cell.
So you think the universe is a giant prokaryote?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay.
That's great, Rick.
67% chance.
It's really wonderful. I can't work with.
I can prove it scientifically.
You can prove it scientifically.
You know, Rick, why haven't you written this up and been peer reviewed?
I know.
You could be in line for the Nobel Prize if you could prove this. I don't know why you're calling us instead of getting actually contacting the real scientific community and doing this.
Yeah.
This is what I get. The reason why I don't try to talk to scientists is this is what I get. This type of.
Do you think there's a reason for that?
I think there's a reason for what? For the way you were acting?
Yes.
For the reason that scientists are rejecting your ideas.
No, and I'm not scientists. I'm not saying scientists. No, the scientists that I've talked to have all taken into consideration, and we're trying to disprove it.
Okay, so Rich, why have you not written a paper, had it peer-reviewed and published? I've done that. It's not that hard. I've peer-reviewed papers, had them published. You can do it. It's
and Kelley,
really
Kelley doesn't work for a university, by the way. Kelley does not get payrolled by any scientific organization. He works. He works independently as a scientist.
I have to payroll myself, actually.
Yeah, he just published. He's published his own stuff, and if a journal accepts it, it gets published.
Why would I want to do that?
Because then you can educate everyone.
Yeah.
Instead of educating just Dan and I.
Yeah, you would be able to.
Everyone.
Why? Well, I don't know. The same reason why you'd want to call to the show, I guess.
Yeah,
because you want to tell people about it.
This is the first time doing it. It's on a whim. I'm just trying to figure out why you guys discount like a creative type of scenario of a solution of the universe.
Well, first of all, this is the first time I've heard that the universe is a prokaryotic cell.
Yes.
So that's why. But the other thing is, look again. The reason why scientists might not take you seriously is because being a scientist is actually really hard, especially if you do that for a living. Like, you have to do work, okay? You have to go in a lab. You have to talk to other scientists. You have to write a lot of papers. You have to do a lot of research. And some guy from the internet just saying, well, I think the universe is actually so, they may not take that seriously because they got other shit to do. You know what I'm saying? They're doing real work, and that takes a long time, you know? So, like, if
they were given a solution... And so if they were going to give a solution by like a lowly patent clerk in Austria, they would just like do the same thing?
No, they would test that.
Yeah.
And to see if it worked.
Why wouldn't they just look into it and try to...
You know, here's what's funny, because you blame the Big Bang Theory for not being testable in any sense. I have no idea how we would test your idea. Please tell me how we would do that.
Well, because if you're looking in a microcosm, macrocosm scenario, every subatomic particle has got to match up. And we know a lot about the micro.
Okay, but how do we test that?
The tolerance levels and the standard deviations levels are so small they have to match exactly. Otherwise,
but Rick, your issue was we can't test the Big Bang Theory. So how do we test this theory?
Rick, are you implying that the molecules and the atoms and all the particles in the universe right now are out of line?
Out of line?
Yeah, I mean, you just said everything had to be perfectly in line for that to happen. So if the Big Bang didn't happen, then everything's out of line, right?
I don't know.
No. I guess maybe either I misspoke. Or
I don't know if you, Rich. I'm honestly, Rick. I'm sorry. I keep mispronouncing your name, Rick. I'm really sorry. I don't think you have, from what you've been saying to me, I'm not sure that you have a full grasp of what you're trying to explain to us. And you keep saying you've misspoken. That's what kind of leads me to believe that you're not sure about what you're saying.
Maybe I didn't misspoke. Maybe you just misunderstood.
Well, you're the one that said you misspoke. I didn't. I'm not the one who said it. In a microcosm, macrocosm system situation that I'm explaining, okay, every single subatomic particle has to be identical, equal. All of the energies, all of the masses, all the spins, everything's got to be identical, and they have to match up perfectly.
Okay.
And when I'm looking at those two things, they match up perfectly.
Wow, that's great. Well, that's wonderful. I think you should tell NASA, and then come back to us.
I'm not telling anybody.
But
you're telling
why
us?
are you telling us?
Thanks. I don't care what. I'm just trying to figure out why you guys don't.
We already told you.
We told you. We really told you. We really did.
Times.
We really did. Rick, we're going to let you go. This isn't going to go anywhere. I'm sorry. We've got other folks who want to talk to us, and we've been talking to you for a long time. Look, okay, the idea that observations can match up with theory. Okay, yeah, that's a lot of what the Big Bang cosmology tries to do. Okay, right? And yeah, it's not testable in the same classical sense that we think of testing, okay?
Right.
I think it's funny that when we have this, well, here's my alternative idea. It can't be tested in the same way, but look, it matches up with these observations. Okay, yeah, that's fine. The difference is, of course, again, as I mentioned, a Big Bang cosmology can make predictions for other observations that we see in the universe.
You know,
right?
I was so happy to get a call about science, and then I got that one.
I know. I don't know. Look, and again, I also think it's weird that you don't want to tell people about it, but you do want to go on an internet call-in show to tell us and wonder why we don't believe it. Well, I don't believe it because you haven't shown us anything. You just having a conversation with us about your world-shattering ideas about how the universe was created. Yeah, I'm going to need a little bit more than that. Because we talk to a lot of people who have different ideas about the universe, okay? I've talked in the same call-in show, I've talked to one guy who believes that there's bug people on Mars and another guy that doesn't believe that space is real, like at all. Everybody has ideas. That's great, but we got to be able to show that work. This is not showing your work. You gotta do a little bit more than to say, well, if you look at cells and how they divide, it could be how the universe works. That's just not how you do things. You got to put a little more effort into it. But hey, before we move on to our next caller, I got to let you guys know a little bit more about how you can support this program and other programs here at the ACA. If you shop on Amazon, one of the ways you can support the ACA is through the Amazon Smile program. They are going to be taking away this program pretty soon, from what I understand. So take advantage of this while you still can. If you like to shop on Amazon, you can go to that link, tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA. And if you do that, you can designate the atheist community of Austin as your charity of choice, and some of their profits will go directly to us. So if you're planning on shopping on Amazon anyway, that's a good way to get your shopping done. And also, we have some merch. If you like t-shirts, if you like hoodies, if you like mugs, like I do, you should definitely check out that store. And of course, what we're trying to do with all of our call-in shows is have our monthly shirt as well. We've got one for Talk Heathen this month, so check it out. It will be available actually, only for the next few days or so. I guess I forget when January ends, but we're getting close to the end there.
We're closer.
Yeah, and then we'll have a new shirt of the month next month, so you can look forward to that as well. If you're like me and you like listening to your shows just in audio format, you can do that if you go to tiny.cc/AEN podcast. It has this show in audio form as well as all the other ACA programs in audio form. So check that out if you're an audiophile like me and just like to listen to stuff. You can also become a part of the Talk Heathen community in the fan-run Facebook group. The link to that is tiny.cc/FBTHG, and that is a group run by fans for fans to talk about Talk Heathen and Talk Heathen-related topics, which includes, but not is limited to, how the universe is actually a living prokaryotic cell that divides itself in its creation. Again, one of the main topics you may be able to have a conversation about. And one last thing before we move on, in case you didn't know, Talk Heathen has a Tech Talk, and we will be trying to go live before the shows on Sunday. We didn't get to do that today, but in the future, we're going to keep doing that. So subscribe to the TikTok channel for Talk Heathen, and hang out with us a little bit before the show as we continue to do that in the future. So with that stuff out of the way, Kelley, I think we should take our next caller.
Awesome.
Ready for that?
Yeah, I totally am ready. I hope we're going to do a little bit better than the last call.
Let's see what happens. We got Freyja, who is calling in from Texas. Freyja, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hello, Dan and Kelley, right?
That's right. You got it.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Yes, I've called in the past under the name Relic.
Okay.
I have since deconverted from what I was and now identify as an atheist.
Wow. Well, congratulations to you.
I was going to say, thanks for getting better.
You got your card-carrying atheist thing is coming in the mail, I'm sure. Make sure you sacrifice your monthly baby quota, and just follow all the protocols let out by the Church of the Temple of Satan or whatever. I don't know.
And if you really want to join the inner circle, please bury $1,000 in your backyard, and our underground agents will contact you.
Yeah, that too, for sure.
Oh, I thought the blood fountain would have guaranteed my access.
No, that's a premium level thing. You got to go up in the tiers for that. So, if you follow your local guidestones, and they'll tell you the policies. But anyway, Freyja, congratulations on working on yourself and working on your beliefs and stuff. That's a great thing. Whether you stay an atheist or move on, it's always good to kind of think about yourself. So anyway, what do you want to talk to us about today?
Okay, so I want to talk about something that was instrumental in keeping me inside that theist bubble, because I deconverted from young Earth creationism, and then became an atheist, and then I reconverted as a Norse pagan for a little bit.
Yeah, I could. You know what, Freyja? I kind of guessed it was the Norse thing. No reason at all for me to guess that. No reason, Freyja. I'm just saying, it's got a little bit of a thing there, but hey.
Yeah, I ripped the name from that cold bitch's hands. Yeah. And it's mine now.
Yeah. Well, good for you.
Yeah. So the problem is that I've noticed this with multiple religions, and basically all of them that have some form of prayer or they have some form of meditation aspect, is that there is you give yourself primers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And something that me and my wife did through specifically my experience was that I had an experience with the goddess Freyja, which might have been sort of the trans aspect of myself coming out. I don't know exactly, but through repeated meditation, through like past experience of like I'm getting answers from the divine, that feedback loop would produce an endorphin rush, and it would also reinforce, because I don't know if any of y'all have meditated for an extended period of time or anything. You will give yourself hallucinations. You can give yourself a drug trip just on your own brain.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like, I've experimented with meditations in the past. I don't think I've gotten quite to that point, but I've heard other people who can, retain that sort of state of mind for long enough that you do kind of have these sort of sensations that you otherwise wouldn't have. So you really are kind of altering your state of being when you're doing that, which is interesting. Which, as you point out, if you're primed to certain cultural mythos or religious sort of hierarchies, and you can interpret your experiences through those lens, it totally makes sense and has a lot of explanatory power for why so many cultures have these different ideas of a God. A lot of people say, well, look, there's so many cultures that have like a God belief. Doesn't that point to the divine? And really it points to human psychology. Right. It says we have the ability to interpret our experiences as something beyond ourselves, and that gives us this sort of pseudo sort of in-look into the divine, right?
I don't know if it's so much the ability or the willingness.
Yeah. It's
that we want to come up with explanations for answers for things that we can't explain.
Right.
So we go to the divine.
Yeah,
right?
and when we experience something that we don't normally experience, we attribute it to something beyond ourselves. But anyway, that's me ranting there, Freyja. So that is interesting. How you can come to the conclusion in your case, for example, the Norse mythology sort of informed your experiences there.
I had some very spiritual experiences when I was a pagan, so I can understand it.
Yeah, for sure.
Very much so.
Yes. And is this thing of the priming, because like for some reason I had a weird experience where someone approached me at a job I had and said, hey, someone's trying to contact you, and then that happened. So like I know where the priming came from now. But like that, and then the feedback loop, and I feel like this is an explanation basically because this can be applied to every religion that is there currently that has this form of, because prayer in itself is a form of meditation.
That's right.
Just on a shorter time span.
Yes,
sure.
And you can constantly reinforce yourself if you're like, hey, God, or hey, Freyja, or hey, Zeus, or hey, Athena, like, what's going on with my life? You will trigger that endorphin response. And I think it's the endorphin response that people attribute to responses. And that you can, that through asking yes or no questions, you end up tricking yourself into different sets of beliefs, and kind of like a, what's the name of that game? Let's just say that like you can end up ping-ponging off of a bunch of different beliefs, or find yourself in your own little sub-pockets of delusions and keep yourself there by reinforcing it through that meditation trap or anything that reinforces it. Like tarot readings, if you're taking them seriously, or any form of divination, always can back channel into this same subset of beliefs.
Yes, You're 100% right.
I would agree with that, yes.
And it's interesting in the Christian tradition, since you mentioned that you were a Christian, I believe, like there is a tradition of this even within Christianity. It's just not commonly found in the American sort of Protestant traditions. Lectio Divina is what it's called. It was really started by the Eastern Fathers, right? And it was this idea that if you looked at Scripture, and if you really looked at Scripture and meditated on this stuff and did this daily, you'd be able to have these kinds of divine insights on stuff. It really is a form of meditation that was practiced in some monastic traditions that, of course, isn't common for most of us here in the United States, but like still exists in many parts of the world, and it is a part of that history. And as you pointed out, you can also like put this into other kinds of religious experiences. For example, Pentecostal churches. A lot of people say, well, what's happening there? These people are doing these wild movements with their bodies. They're talking in ways that they normally wouldn't talk. And that excitement, as you mentioned, those endorphins, like they can really put you in these states of mind that feel like there's something else controlling you, or feels like it's coming from something outside of yourself. Absolutely. But it really is just a physical response to an environment. And because we're social creatures as well, we tend to pick up on that and figure it out. There's a reason why Pentecostals Pentecostalism only happens in Pentecostal churches. Have you ever thought about that? You know, like the Holy Spirit isn't coming down on an Aborigine tribe, and
that's because they're the one true church.
Yeah, it's true. I guess they're the only pure ones that can receive, the Holy Spirit or whatever. But like there's a reason why it's local, and of course historically, if you only lived within 100 miles of the same place your whole life, you're not going to realize, oh yeah, other people can have traditions and experiences that can be similar but also different in those respects, right?
Right. And the cool thing about that people don't really think about, or at least most people in my experience of dealing with this sort of stuff, is that you mentioning Native American tribes, and then you mentioned Pentecostals. The thing they're doing is they're wildly moving their bodies. Some churches have you speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
And so you're doing these chants and you're doing these dances. You're no different from any other practicing group that does this, because for once again in Norse paganism, from the other part of myself that I had, there's a whole thing of like, put on the music, drum, dance, move your body wildly and free yourself up, because what you're doing is you're just trying to get rid of that fear response to something strange happening to you.
Yes. When I was in college, Freyja, I've talked about this a little bit before, but I had this experience with the Hare Krishnas Hindus that were there at the college. Hare Krishnas, very, very interesting sect of Hinduism. I don't have time to talk about it all, but one of the tenets of Hare Krishna is that their mantra, they truly believe the mantra of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Mana, Hare Mana, Mana Mana, Hare Hare. You say that over and over again, and like you do these kinds of chants with other people in this group, and I challenge any Christian, anybody to go into that group and do those chants and sit in the circle and perform that meditation and see if you don't feel something. You will feel something. You really will. There is something there that it's hard to describe, but it's there. Is that the Holy Spirit? Is that a divinity? Is that something? I mean, if you can experience that, and I don't even share any of the beliefs of the Hare Krishnas, what does that mean? I think that means there's something in our human psychology that leads us to it. And I believe the same thing would be true, by the way, if I went to a Pentecostal church tomorrow and went there. I think there'd be something in the air that I could pick up on. Doesn't mean it's actually there. It just means we're just social animals and we kind of pick up on these sorts of rituals, it is kind of fascinating.
I've experienced the same kind of thing at a live music concert as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. Well, Freyja, I'm so glad, again, you talked about this, because this is a very important subject, and it's hard for people to wrap their heads around without having these experiences themselves, right? Especially if you have these experiences and you don't know how best to explain them, putting them in a wider cultural context really, at least for me, was very, very enlightening and was very critical for my sort of development.
Yeah. I mean, the way I think about it is that it's the great communal Jedi mind trick.
Yeah.
Because what you end up doing is that you get into these things, like you're feeling the sense of community and that there's a group moving around you. And the one thing I forgot to mention about my journey is that for a split second there between my Norse paganism, because one thing I was more like a Jungian archetype Freyja, and then there was a quick break to where I went to Hare Krishna and tried to seriously practice that life at home for like a few months, and then went back into Norse paganism. And I had that music on my Spotify that Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Rama Rama,
Hare Rama, yes,
and so you can, if you're in a setting where a bunch of people believe, and I don't think it needs to even be a religious thing, like you said with the concert. You get enough people around you who are just as enthused about being there as you, and are just as enthused about spreading whatever's happening or perpetuating the event. That's what you're feeling. That endorphin rush is not God. That's you connecting with yourself as a human being and connecting with others. It's basically reminding yourself that you're not alone in experience.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And again, well, I should do a deep dive on the Hare Krishnas sometime, because that would
be fun.
They're interesting.
I know about them too.
Yeah,
because they used to hang out in a lot at the Grateful Dead show.
Yeah, I bet they did. Interesting history, very weird group. But yeah, like as you mentioned, their music, literally just the same lyrics. It's the same 16 lines, and it's just it's over and over, but it's in different musical contexts, and it's like there's something to that. I don't know, like that. You put yourself in that trance state, and you're so right, Fred. You are feeling something there. It's just not divine, right? At least that's the conclusion we've come to. It's not. It can't. I think it's more likely to be something natural than anything else.
And it's so catchy that even one of the Beatles plagiarized
That's
it.
right. Yeah. That's a whole other thing too with the Beatles. I was gonna say, John Lennon and them were really
George Harrison.
And George, you're right. George Harrison hanging out with the Hare Krishnas. They had a phase. But look, anyway, Freyja, this was a great conversation. Thanks so much for sharing your story with that. We'll go ahead and let you go. But thanks again for calling in. And yeah,
I don't blame you for that. I'm the old guy here. So
yeah, I hope you have a great day too.
I love one of the things that Freyja said. She said it was a collective Jedi mind trick.
Yeah.
And the first thing that went through my mind was, these are the gods you will believe in.
Yeah. Kelley was cracking me up earlier because we were playing Beatles music here in the studio, and Kelley was like, "Oh yeah, I think that's that English band, right?" What did you say? You were like,
"Oh yeah, that's that old English band.
It's that old English band,
the Rolling Stones."
Yeah. Oh no, you were cracking me up. I don't know. It was really funny. But anyway, yeah, it's like that observation that Freyja pointed out. I really need to harp on this because that was so instrumental for me. Like the last vestiges of my Christianity, when I couldn't figure out, okay, this Bible stuff maybe isn't real, this church, this obviously corrupt, a lot of people doing bad stuff, but these feelings I get, how do I explain these feelings, these personal experiences? And that was like the final thing for me was, this is just something that we do because we're just giant apes that have fucked up brains. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what you are. I'm just a little ape.
Well, you're a little ape. I'm a giant ape that has a fucked up brain and interprets the world wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
And just like has feelings, and that's it. That's sometimes all it takes, and you get a religion out of that.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Really crazy. But real quickly, a couple things I want to point out here. I want to make sure that you guys check out the newest episode of the Nonprofits, the flagship show of the atheist community of Austin. If you recognize this guy, that means you're already a fan of the Nonprofits. Kelley has been hosting on there for almost over a year now.
I've been on, about a year.
Yeah,
about a year.
So check that out. It's going to be airing live at 3 p.m. Central today, or you can visit tiny.cc/YTNP.
And it is the flagship show of the ACA.
It is the flagship show of the ACA.
You know what? I was wondering, if it's the flagship show, would secular sexuality be the love boat of the ACA?
It could be the love boat of the ACA. I'm a fan of this. We need to have some sort of naval sort of metaphors for all of our shows.
Yeah, you're sure.
I'm not creative enough to come up on the spot with this now, but I will explore this at a future date. The ACA wants you to know what is going on in our community and what we've got. And for that, we've got an updated website. It's atheist-community.org, where you can learn about the organization itself, its policies, and how you can get involved. I almost said www.atheist-community.org, which still works, but nobody says the www anymore. I remember seeing that all the time on TV, and it's just like, that's such a... Who thought that was like, good phonetically? It's a lot. It's a mouthful. I don't know. Like, I get it. World Wide Web. It's just a lot. Anyway, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you've got to say to us. And that doesn't just include calling us on the show. We want to know what you liked, what you thought was effective, and more importantly, what you think we could do better. So you can email us. It's tv@atheist-community.org and let us know. We love getting that feedback. And personally, any emails that are sent to me that come my way, I like looking at those over comments. I will read comments sometimes, but emails, I can tell that's for people who really care and want us to really know about stuff. So always a good thing to do.
I like to read the comments.
Yeah, comments hit or miss. It's YouTube. There's a lot of crazy comments out there, but. Before we move on, we also need to show you guys a quick promo video talking about some of the other stuff we got going on at the ACA, so check it out.
Be aware that poly people aren't necessarily about the sex. Yeah, a lot of us are. But, we're not necessarily
Which is valid.
About
sex is nice. I like sex,
so
for goodness sakes.
We're just two dudes on the internet, and anything that we've said today is just the opinion of two dudes of the internet, not two physicians or two professional philosophers or two anything, really. I mean, just call-in show hosts, which is the lowest credibility on the credibility ladder.
We can't prove we're not XXX in this situation, living in a simulation. I mean, we can't prove that a deity does not exist. That doesn't mean that I go around bathing in Pascal's wager going, oh, look, I can't prove it doesn't exist.
That's a dingleberry. You know what a dingleberry is, right? Tell you what, go to Urban Dictionary after this program is done, and then come back to me, and you see what happens. Okay?
Should I use my work computer?
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds like you want to talk about morality and how it does not apply to God because he's the ultimate being.
Hello, I even have biblical evidence for this.
Oh, that's gonna mean a lot to us. Oh man,
Yeah.
Ben, did you hear this? He has biblical evidence. Get ready to be
man.
pummeled into submission.
And welcome back to the program. We are going to be back to taking your calls in just a second, but I got one more thing I need to get out of the way here. If you're local to the Austin area, as you can see, we are live in studio, and we're going to keep doing in-studio programs going forward, but we are going to be doing it once a month for each of our call-in programs, so check it out next time. It's going to be February 23rd through the 26th for that. We've got Secular Sexuality all the way to Truth Wanted, and then Talk Heathen, and of course, Atheist Experience. I will actually be doing Talk Heathen live again next month and Atheist Experience next month. I thought I was going to do it today, and I was like, why isn't my head on the thumbnail? And I was like, oh, wait, that's not today. That's next month. So anyway, yeah, check that out and come hang out with me, and Jim Barrows will be there for Atheist Experience, and a bunch of other folks will be in studios. So if you're in the Austin area, check it out. Doors open at noon on Sundays, and for Thursday and Fridays, you can come in as early as 6. So take a look at that. And I said that was the last thing. Well, we actually have a different announcement I need to bring up. We showed this at the beginning of the show in case you're joining us live and you didn't get to see it. If you are in the Austin area or if you're Austin adjacent, we are in need of some additional crew members for the show. So if you're interested in assisting with video, audio, or call screening, you can and you can attend our live. So please email tv@atheist-community.org and get in touch with our production team so that we can do that. We are going to be having auditions for both the new hosts for the new area, for the local area, and for crew members. So please consider that if you haven't already. We have a lot of great folks who are helping us out online. We need to build back our Austin repertoire since we've gotten through 2020 and the subsequent years.
And honestly, this is a great group of people to work with. Like, I was born in the early days of the Roman Empire, so I've been around a while. And these are some of the best people I've ever worked with. So it's definitely worth coming down.
I wasn't expecting early days of the Roman Empire. That's really funny. Really good. Kelley, we're glad that you're here. But
I am too. I really am glad I'm here.
Yeah. But a lot of announcements. Let's go ahead and go back to the meat of the program. We got calls.
Good.
We got calls and people who are on those calls who want to talk to us. First off, we got Nate. Nate from Texas who is calling in to Talk Heathen. Nate, what's going on?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going good.
Good.
So the thing I want to talk about today is a little convoluted, so I actually took notes so I can keep my thoughts together here.
Thank you. We always appreciate that. We will never tell a caller not to take notes. You know what I mean? Like, it's always a good thing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, when dealing with stuff like this, it's almost imperative,
Mm-hmm. I agree.
To the meat of my point. So we all know that, like, people will say that, like, philosophy degrees and such are, like useless to society. There's like a joke about that, right? They're like, oh, you have a philosophy degree? Okay. You know what I mean?
That's definitely a perspective people have. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing that bothers me is that I have met theists out there that have been purely convinced to their religion and gone from atheism to theism purely through philosophical arguments that claim to use logic and reason to get you to a God belief, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Over and over again, I hear these particular theists saying, what's the best explanation? I want to believe the best explanation, right? Whereas, maybe us, we would say, like, you got to show some evidence, you got to show some proof. But, they claim that these explanations are the evidence.
Yeah.
So my question to you guys my question to you guys is, does pure philosophy without the scientific method, does it have any merit? Or is theists just connecting the dots to something that's not even tangible, right? I like the analogy of making a recipe with intangible items. Like you make a cookie recipe with sugar, butter, invisible dragons, you know?
Yeah.
And when you put it all together, it tastes just like a cookie. It's great. But, you know, you could say, well, the invisible dragons were part of it, but did you really need them?
Sure.
You know?
This is an interesting and tricky question here, Nate.
Yeah.
Because I think what you're really asking about, first of all, I'm going to disregard this notion that that there's a philosophical method and a scientific method. I don't think that's right. I think what you're really talking about, and this is what I would, this is because of the philosophy education that I do have, that's quite limited, is that this is more of a debate between rationalism and empiricism, right? So empiricism being this idea that observations, we have to have knowledge through observations. It's through our senses that we're able to come to any kind of knowledge about reality. Whereas rationalists would say, well, it's actually coming from our minds. It's actually coming from our processes of thinking. Like that's actually like kind of the real heart of it. You're able to have knowledge about things without any kind of sense observations. Of course, the classic example of this is Rene Descartes saying, cogito ergo sum, therefore I think, therefore I am, right? So like this has been a debate not just within philosophy. I mean, this is, first of all, a lot of the philosophers that we look at when you look at the history of philosophy, we're Christians, but a lot of them are deists because even they realize sort of the problems that come with it. But they were going back and forth between whether or not you could actually have knowledge, whether knowledge was this sort of Aristotelian form, this sort of perfect idea that came from God and therefore just a rationalist position, or we had to know God's creation through the act of knowing the world around us through observation. Everyone, like, you can look at even the most hardcore, Thomas Aquinas, Martin Luther, kind of Christian theologians and philosophers that will have differing opinions on this. So, like, I sometimes apologists will talk to me and they'll say, well, we don't have faith. Faith is actually this idea that we can build observations on things. And it's like, I don't know if that's what Jesus actually taught. I'm pretty sure he was just like, no, you just got to believe it because you should, right?
Oh, yeah.
But like, this, I think when we do science, it is a result of a history of our philosophy. Like philosophy informs why we understand the scientific method to be useful and why we know that it can work for certain things. Now, I'm not somebody who believes that science actually gives us knowledge about everything. Science so far has not given me any particular knowledge about my intrapersonal experience, right? My internal world, right? That's purely from me. That's not because I read a paper. I'm like, oh, I understand who Dan is because somebody did some observations on me and they figured that out. Like, no, that's from me, like interacting with my body, right? And going through the world. So like, there's definitely knowledge that science, I think, doesn't touch, but it is incredibly useful for a lot of the kinds of claims that Christians and particularly religious folk do make. There are some concrete examples of things, like, for example, the earth flooding 6,000 years ago. Okay, that's something that is within the realm of science and can be observed and that we can look at. But other kinds of things like knowledge of God or knowledge of beings outside of our ability to be observed that may not be exactly answerable by science. So in truth, I think this question is a bit muddled. Hopefully I'm clarifying some of these terms here and what I think is really the debate being had here. Does that make sense, Nate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I just wasn't, because I know that like philosophy in itself is a science and it does have merit, but it sounds like the way that they're using philosophy seems erroneous to me, and it's probably because I'm basing it on the fact that I'm more of an empiricist.
Yeah.
Versus what did you call it? I would call
rationalists.
It
Yeah, I mean, there is a rationalist tradition, right? And again, there are problems with empiricism as a foundation of knowledge, right? In the same way that there's problems with epistemology in the sense of like, okay, justified true beliefs are usually the systems by which most of us agree upon. But Gettier problems, if you've ever wanted to look at that, completely blows the justified true belief idea out of the water. But it's still useful to us. It's still pragmatic in the same way that empiricism is incredibly useful for us for building bridges and making space stations. But it may not be able to tell us, are there invisible dragons or invisible purple dragons out in the universe? I mean, like on the surface, it really can't. But that doesn't mean that we have to have a belief in those things. There's other kinds of methods of knowing things that we may have to look at, some of which may be studied and introduced by rationalist traditions of thinking. There's lots of people that have tried to meld these two things together with varying degrees of success, right? But like that's why philosophy is important. For us to even be able to qualify the terms in which we're talking about right now, again, you cannot have a scientific tradition without the history of philosophy. I think those things are intertwined. It really does inform how we know and interact with the world. And in today's world, we think philosophy is overrated, but really it is the foundation of a lot of what we do.
Yeah, we wouldn't have science today without the questioning of philosophy, for sure.
Of course, yeah.
So I guess my next question would be, is there a way to rationalize atheism, like an argument for atheism, that goes in the same method, like, rationalization for, like, the arguments for theism? Like, theists, they all have, like, the contingency argument is the one I get hit up with a lot.
Yeah.
Or the cosmological, like, do atheists have their own versions of that we could counter, because I get into a lot of debates with theists all the time.
What do you think, Kelley?
I think the biggest atheist trope like that would be, show me the proof.
Yeah,
show me the proof. If you're gonna make a claim like that, if without that proof, I just simply am not gonna believe it.
Yeah, I think what Nate is alluding to is this idea that we atheists, we often don't make positive claims.
Yeah, right.
So I think Nate is wondering, can we make a positive claim towards the belief of there being no gods? There are some atheists that think we can do this. I'm not convinced of this. One, I use the term non-cognitivism. Sometimes I talk about my understanding of my atheism because this idea of God is very loose to me. It's not very definable. I don't really know what that means when people are saying it, in the same way that people talk about the word spiritual. What the hell does spiritual mean? Anything can be spiritual. Your Reiki healer down the street can be spiritual. Your Pentecostal preacher can be spiritual. Your moments you had with your dog can be spiritual. Like that word is so loose, I really don't know what people mean by it. Same thing with God. God has had a history of meaning so many things, nature, a creator, whatever. Like it's so much. So I don't know if there's one particular argument that disproves and dislodges, every single theist claim that's ever happened, or even multiple kinds of arguments. I mean, like we really do try to think of atheism, at least in this community, as a non-belief, as a lack of belief. That's a pretty popular idea. And the disadvantage that comes with is, we don't get to make the positive claims and say, look, there are no gods, and here's why. Here's my observations that demonstrate that there's no beings outside of ourselves. I don't think we can really do that.
I don't either.
If somebody has done it, I'd be interested in seeing it, but I just don't think that's something we could do. So that kind of puts us on the back foot sometimes, because people think, well, if you can't argue that case, why do you believe it? And it's more so that I don't believe the other things people say about their gods. Right. I don't believe the specific claims people have made about the divinity of Jesus or the importance of the Buddha,
or Hare Krishna.
Or Hare Krishnas. Right. It's like that's a little bit more complicated and a bit more nuanced, which is why it's hard to occupy the space that we're in. But that's all we can do. Really, we have to be honest with ourselves. Right. If we don't believe something, we can't say that it's true. So anyway, Nate, that's a very long answer. I hope I answered what you were looking for there.
Yeah, it definitely got me to think, it's like us atheists, we use empiricism to define ourselves, and we kind of, I guess you're saying it's a rejection of rationalism by saying, show me the proof, which I accept, of course, that I reject that. But when, these theists come to you with their rational arguments, they don't bring in all the extra baggage with all the, with the Bible, the Quran. They don't bring in all that extra stuff. They're just trying to get you to like either a deism or a general theism. So then they check you with all the crazy, right?
That is the general strategy you see with a lot of apologists today, where they do try to get you to that sort of ostensibly neutral position of deism that is divorced from the history of Christianity. Because every apologist I mean, they're Christians.
We just saw that with our first caller today.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know if, well, to be fair, I don't know if Rick identified as a Christian. I think he said that.
No, he said, no, I meant the idea that we're trying to sneak in this. Well, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
That was just the idea of trying to sneak in that intelligent designer. Right.
But if you look at the big names, I'm thinking of like Frank Turek, all these other folks, like they are Christians. At the end of the day, they are Christians. They believe Jesus Christ rose from the dead. They don't always argue for that, though. They try to argue from this point of view of, well, if we look at all of the evidence, if we know for sure whether or not this thing's happening, they get into the weeds here, but like they are Christians, and like that is something I think is, I don't want to say deceitful, but like I do imagine if I was a Christian, I think I'd try to do that too, right? I'd try to go for the more neutral points first. Like it just makes sense from like a marketing perspective.
Baby steps.
But it's like,
baby steps.
Salesman.
Yeah.
We'll get them little by little.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what it is. Because like most people wholesale, if they've never heard the truth of Christianity before, if they're encountering it for the first time, why would you believe that? Why would you believe like a guy rose from the dead 2,000 years ago? Like you just don't. Most of us believe it because our parents believed it, and we grew up in a church. That's like the story of Christianity today for most of us, But anyway, there you go, Nate.
It's like if I use your rational arguments, I could be a general theist or a deist, but then you're going to try and inject me with, the Bible and stuff, and well, now that you believe in a God, because you believe, now they're using that top-down logic, right? Like because you believe in God,
right?
Now he resurrected from the dead, Jesus Christ, and blah blah blah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll follow you. That really cleared a lot up for me.
Good.
I really appreciate you guys.
I'm glad that cleared things up for you, Nate. Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
I think I'm good. Just keep fighting the fight. Doing what y'all are doing. I watch like every week, so I really appreciate.
Thanks for watching.
Done for me. So yeah.
Thank you, Nate. We really do appreciate it, and we will keep on the fight there.
I wanted to say something really profound.
Sorry, Kelley. I was taking up a lot of that time
I wanted
there.
to say something really profound, and then following you, I felt like I was going to sound like an idiot. So.
No, I mean, I see this in the atheist circles. I see this idea. Well, science is sort of king, right? Science kind of tells us everything. We should follow science to the nth degree. It tells us, and it's like yes and no. Like, yes, science has obviously given us an air-conditioned studio and audio equipment for us to broadcast to thousands of people around the world. That's great, and I'm not dismissing that. But this idea that like you can just solve any kind of argument with science, that is just demonstrably not true. I think like you do have to engage in the topics of, as we talk about, traditions of rationalism versus empiricism, but also other schools of philosophy and thought that have informed the perspective that we have today. We would not have the modern scientific method without the consideration of epistemology, of how we know the things that we know, right? So with that, it is time to read out our top 5 patrons, Kelley.
Oh, okay.
We got to, every week we always like to shout out our top 5 patrons. We, of course, want to thank everybody that donates on that Patreon, but we give some shout outs to the top 5 on Talk Heathen. So, Kelley, you got the list. So
yeah, I feel honored to do the most important part of the show today.
Yeah, you get to do it.
And our top 5 patrons are Eric Tweet, Dingleberry Jackson, and yes, I know what a Dingleberry is.
I'm glad you do.
Ayame, Devout Valjan, and I hope I pronounced that. What donate money and have your name mispronounced. The Bearded Skeptic of TikTok, and drum roll, an honorable mention to Stephen Oliver. So thank you all very much.
Awesome. Kelley is killing it with the top 5 patrons. That's really great. And hey, folks, if you haven't noticed, we are in studio today. So I think we might be taking some questions from the audience here in just a second. We got our boy Jason Friedman out here. Jason, what's up, man?
Hey, guys. Y'all doing a good job. I wanted to bring this one up. I know Kelley has mentioned to me a bunch of times about he's at his rock shop, and folks will come up and try to convince him that rocks have magical properties. Why do you think that is, and do you think that's harmful?
I do think it's very harmful. One of the big things is that these magical properties usually involve healing some kind of physical or mental or emotional ailment. And people, instead of using a rock that's really not going to do anything for them, it does not have that capacity, really need to be seeing a professional, a therapist, a medical doctor, whatever it is that's going to deal with the problem that they're having. And I think it's so popular because a lot of people have been lost within our medical system, that or people have problems that just can't be resolved, right? Like I have chronic pancreatitis. It cannot be cured. I'm resolved to that fact, but there are other people who might have something like that and still think that somehow, somewhere out there, something's going to cure them. The doctors are telling them that they can't do it, so maybe this crystal will do it. So they go to things like that. They go to other pseudosciences and pseudomedicine because they're looking for a cure for something that medicine can't help them with.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of people think, oh, this is a result of, irrational thinking. This is a result of cognitive biases, and obviously that's true. But this is also a result of social systems more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like people who are relatively healthy and have access to affordable health care in general are not usually the ones that are going to your shop for healing, right? Like
usually not. Yeah.
It is people who have trouble with that system, who can't afford regular health care and are looking for alternative medicine to be able to help the stuff that they do, or they have chronic illnesses, as you mentioned,
Yes.
things like cancer, things that aren't easily solvable, and are looking beyond the traditions of Western medicine to be able to do that. So
Right.
this is more than just like these people are dumb and they just don't know how to think right. It is like, no, this is a lack of care that's happening across the board.
Yes, it really is. And then unfortunately, though, that it kind of spreads out into people who can get care because they see other people doing this and they get, that person is using it to help them with their emotional problems. There must be some kind of credence to this. Which leads up to about 5 years ago on Facebook, I saw a woman post what crystal would be good for my daughter's diabetes.
Yeah.
Which pissed me off to the point that I'm sitting in the seat right now.
Yeah.
That's what motivated, one of the things that motivated me to start really crusading against bad thinking. So.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's easier to get a rock at your shop than it is to pay for monthly insulin costs.
Yeah, and
right?
it's a lot cheaper too.
It's just that's how it is in this country, and that's how it's going to be. And why I'm also an advocate for talking about these kinds of industries is because people do profit off of that, directly profit. Like they profit off of people's ignorance on these topics, and I do think it's despicable. I don't think it's something that should be done. So I will call it out, but it's important to bring up that context too. But anyway, Jason, that was a great question. Thank you very
much, Jason.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
Thanks
for getting me in there.
Jason has been hanging out at the ACA recently, doing some work for us, and he's been doing some awesome stuff. So, Jason, you're a cool dude. Shout out to Jason. So we got some other people who want to talk to us. Okay, I think this one will be the most. Well, we got some. We'll hopefully we'll get to both before the end here. So, other caller on the line, stick around. We'll see if we can get to you too. Right now, I'm going to talk to Jonah, who is calling from Missouri. Jonah, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hey, what's up, man?
Not much.
What is going on? We're just hanging out, having a good time. How can we help?
Well, I just want to have a discussion. My topic being that I just think that atheism has kind of like intertwined itself with like left-leaning politics, the way that I think Christianity has kind of entwined itself with right-leaning politics, and I don't like either side of that, like at all. But that's just
now.
I'm just saying that I think that yeah.
Well, so I just want to read here because from the call screener, you had pointed this out and you wanted to talk about this, but you used, for example, like LGBTQ and trans rights, like don't belong in atheism. Like, is that what you mean when you say like left-leaning politics, or are you talking more generally, or?
Yeah, I kind of use that as like kind of that would be a good example, but kind of the more broader issue on that it would be identity politics.
Okay.
Would kind of all encompass that.
Okay. So here's what I think, Jonah. I think you're right in that atheists are talking about issues such as LGBTQ thinks more than. If you look at the history of online atheism, it's really great. Even before, by great I mean terrible. But before I ever got involved with the scene, we're talking about like 2010s, early stuff. That there was conversations about this idea of atheism plus. Right? And it was this idea of, okay, well, we should just be talking about like theological issues. We should just be talking about separation of church and state. Why do we include all this other stuff when atheists talk about these things? And there was a real big pushback to atheists talking a lot about LGBT issues and stuff in particular. Of course, we talk about it all the time on this program. And for me, there's a clear reason why, because these things are absolutely intertwined. Religion and politics are completely intertwined. You cannot understand religion fully in its fullest scope historically up to now, and the forces that have shaped it without understanding politics and vice versa, especially within the United States. So it's something that has to be addressed within the scope of our activism in order for us to like fully make our arguments, but also for us to fully make change as well. The fact is, and again, we're talking, I'll bring this back to LGBT issues, for example, since that was an example you brought up. The church has been directly responsible for the laws in this country that has decimated the LGBT community, right? And it's still happening today. The bills that have been passed, the stuff that was going on both today and yesterday have been a direct result of church involvement in politics. And if we're going to be activists, right, if we're going to talk about this atheism stuff, what's the point, right? Let's think about this. Is the point just to say, oh, we don't believe in gods and that's it? We want to live our lives? No, because there's a distinct difference between the way I live my life versus the fundamentalist Christian, right? And like, I don't want people to live their lives as fundamentalist Christians because I think that's bad, not just for themselves, but for other people. Christian nationalists in this country are directly trying to take away my rights, the rights of other people in my community, and that is something I want to fight against. There is no point to me. If this was simply about just the philosophical implications of whether or not a God exists, I would not be here. I would not care. I would move on with my life and do something else on my Sundays because like this is just trivial, right? But it's not just trivial. It, again, involves directly what we do with our lives and what we do with ourselves. To me, that's why I'm an activist. To me, that's why I talk about these issues, because it directly informs my livelihood and the livelihood of my friends and family. So, you know, that is why yes, do we talk about these issues more? Absolutely. I agree with that. But I think that's a good thing. Yes. I really do. And we have limitations with the ACA because we're a nonprofit organization, so we can't directly, you know, campaign for politicians or things like that, which frankly I'm fine with. But you know.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. One of the things I do want to point out is that, you know, you're talking about LGBTQ issues as a liberal issue, and I always see it more as a humanist issue, right? I care about my fellow human beings. You might think that's a liberal way to be, but that's why I stand up for LGBTQ rights as well, because I think they're just are just as much of a human as I am and deserve to be considered as such. So I don't see it, I myself don't see it as a liberal issue. I see it as a humanist issue. Yeah. And many, many, many atheists are also secular humanists. So you're going to get some crossover there.
It's true. It's true.
Jonah, so a couple things here I got to disagree with. It all really goes back to the identity politics thing, I think, and the idea that there's like this battle going on and rights being taken away and things like that, I think is just blamed on both sides.
Can I stop you for a second, Jonah? The rights aren't being taken away. They were never given to begin with.
That too. Yeah. But there are some rights being taken away, like abortion access, for example.
Yeah, those,
you know, things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
But I was thinking LGBTQ. Their rights aren't being taken away. They were never given them in the first place. And that's what the fight is for them to have those rights, the same rights that you and I have.
Yeah. But anyway, Jonah, I think go ahead, because I think you had a little bit more to say.
But
it's okay.
My point being is that okay, so just talking about the LGBTQ community specifically, I think that the idea of the community is kind of like identity politics itself, because it's kind of like they're speaking for all these people. Like when there are gay conservatives that would be like not want themselves to be a part of this community, and they don't want to be encompassed in that. And you know, so it's kind of not fair for them to claim everybody. Like they're all gay people.
Well, there are gay conservatives that are in the community too. I know several of them myself, but we're not trying to push anybody out. And again, I'm looking at this from a humanist perspective, not from a liberal or a conservative one.
Yeah. First of all, I am a cis straight white guy. Okay, so like I don't represent anybody except myself and whatever other labels, you know, are part of that. I talk about those issues because I care about those people, right? LGBT people, when they have groups that are specifically organized around those causes, are also trying to help other people in their community that, maybe don't always represent their views, but like are ultimately trying to help make things better for them socially, you know, in society as a whole, right? Like Martin Luther King Jr. may not have represented everybody in the black community, but like he was trying to do things for black people, you know what I understand? Because they did not have the same rights that they did, that they do now, right? So like in the same way, there are communities that have popped up around what you're calling identity politics, you know, it's just as important that those groups do exist, even if they don't represent the absolute minutia. Certainly, we don't represent every atheist that lives in Austin, but we are the atheist community of Austin. You know? Go ahead. What?
That's just my problem with it, is that that's just the way that the media portrays it, though. Maybe it's not the case. Maybe you say that there are gay conservatives in the quote-unquote community. Maybe that is the case, but that's not the way that the media perceives it. Ergo, that's not the way everybody else perceives it. Like the media, I don't want to be one of those
that's
people.
Not true because I don't perceive it that way.
But
you're using very general terms like the media doesn't show it that way, and like I don't know what that means, right? You know, I see.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting to that.
I don't know that.
I understand that the media is a general term.
Yeah,
Jonah, let's talk about the media for a second.
Okay.
Okay, you know, it seems like your big problem here is that the community doesn't represent all of the LGBTQ people, right? Do you think Fox News represents all conservatives?
I mean, yeah,
Do you think MSNBC represents all liberals? No.
Yeah.
No
and
organization
they're
represents all people in group.
They're conservative media, but they're a part of the media. Like, I'm not just talking about like liberal media or whatever you want to call it. I'm talking about
you totally missed the point I was making, I think. I'm not sure you caught what I was trying to explain.
Well, maybe I did.
Well, Jonah, I don't know. Here's the thing. Again, the ACA, we're like constituently speaking, very small, right? We're not the same. We don't have the same.
How many conservatives would be in the ACA?
It's a good question. There have been some. I mean, like, well, if you're defining membership as people who've actually paid membership dues and stuff, like, probably not a lot. Probably not a lot. You know, they probably mostly agree with us.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But like, you know, should they be conservative and in our community? Would that be a benefit to us?
So that's the problem that I'm having. It seems that like you wouldn't shun them if they were conservative, but it's more like they would be an outcast. So it's more like,
well, look again.
Like you obviously would not agree as much with the conservatives because.
We wouldn't.
A true conservative is anti-abortion.
At the same time, I don't get that.
Well, look, you're Jonah. Like there are atheist conservatives. I talk to them on Twitter all the time. They're out there. They're definitely there.
I talk to them on Discord all the time.
Like
too.
The fact is, as an organization, like you're going to hang out with the people that agree with you more politically on things. That's just the way it is. Is there an organization that has an equal amounts conservative and equal amounts liberal people that also does political advocacy, but also does political advocacy, right? That also does like what does that look like?
No,
I mean,
obviously not. But there's obviously organizations with a mix of both. Obviously, it can't be a political organization that has a mix of both.
We're not a political organization.
Yeah, we're not a political organization.
We're trying to have a mixture of both.
Are you not a political organization?
No, we are not. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We cannot do politics.
But by politics, let's clarify here. We cannot directly contribute to the campaigns of anybody who's running for office, right? That doesn't mean we can't talk about politics.
But my point is, you might as well. You might as well, is my point.
Wait, we might as well.
I mean,
what?
Sure, you're nonprofit and all. You might.
I'm not sure you know what a 501c3 is.
You don't contribute to politicians, but you might as well contribute to politicians.
Wait, why would we might as well?
Yeah, I don't get why we might as well.
What do you mean?
Because the politicians, specifically left-leaning politicians, if you supported them, they would specifically support the things that you specifically support.
But that doesn't look.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but you might as well go, because
you're pointing a very broad brush. There's a very big difference between folks who are ardent supporters of Hillary Clinton versus folks who are ardent supporters of Bernie Sanders, okay? If you go on the Atheist Community of Austin Discord or anybody here, let me tell you, there's fights about that stuff all the time, okay? There's a lot of good... I'm glad we don't support any particular candidate because we wouldn't be able to agree. Like, everybody would be fighting about it. We have other things that we talk about, and that's fine. Like, look, yeah, in general, we may have some alliances. We may have some, like, agreements on issues. I don't see how that's a problem. We're an organization that agrees on issues. That's what most organizations do. Otherwise, we wouldn't get stuff done. You know,
Jonah, do you have a problem with the LGBTQ community?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could go there if you want to go there, but
no,
it seems like that.
Like, as an example. Because I think
that's not what I asked.
It's a biased organization that you're a part of.
That's not what I asked, though. I'm asking you if you personally have a problem with the LGBTQ community. As I feel like you do, and you're hiding it behind.
This is a trap question.
I feel like you do, and you're hiding it behind politics.
Of course I don't. We're using this as an arbitrary.
Act like a bigot.
Of course I don't have a problem.
Well, then, Jonah, why would you have a problem with us advocating for LGBT rights?
Yeah,
I don't. I'm using it as an example
but you've been arguing
you
for
just
it.
said
You've been doing it through
You said this is an issue. Why is this an issue that we advocate for LGBT?
We can use trans.
Okay, we advocate for trans rights. Why is that an issue, Jonah?
Wait. The T in LGBTQ stands for trans.
That's part of
too far.
That's okay. Well, the fact that you think it's a bridge is too far.
They didn't have rights to begin with.
Yeah, trans people historically have not had rights in this country for many things. Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
They didn't exist till recently. They didn't exist.
That's historically inaccurate.
That's absolutely not true.
Yeah.
What do you mean by recent? What do you think is recent? Is 75 years recent?
Well, it gets to a far point to where I think that you are the gender that you're born by. And yes,
I think you're hiding behind bigotry, I think you're being a bigot and hiding behind your politics is what I think.
That's a very bold statement.
I don't think that's a very bold statement at all. I think you've shown it to us throughout this call.
For me, okay, so smokers have higher health care, correct? So why shouldn't trans people? Because they're a health risk.
Why are they a health risk?
What? Wait. Why shouldn't trans people what?
What? Why are trans people a health risk?
Smokers have a higher cost of health care because they are a health risk.
Okay.
Trans people have higher health care or no health care because they are such a high health risk.
Why are they a health risk? Wait, no. We are not moving on until we resolve this. Okay, you're making a crazy claim here, right? And I want to know why you think that.
Bigot. You just called me a bigot.
Yeah, because you make statements like you just made.
So
because of the statement like you just made. Why do trans people have higher health care? Because that seems like a bigoted statement in and of itself.
They are a health risk.
Why?
What do you mean health risk? You mean
why are they a health risk?
If you go on TikTok, you can see multiple examples.
So you're using TikTok as medical knowledge? Is that what you're doing? Or you're using TikTok as scientific evidence?
Medical knowledge? No, I claim to have supporting evidence backing my claims, like real life.
TikTok is not supporting evidence, man. I hate to tell you.
Well, look, this is
going too.
We're going a lot of places here, Jonah.
Yeah. I need the kickback.
They're doing it on children. They're doing it on children.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So
we are dealing with.
So here's the problem, Jonah. You do have issues with the LGBT community, and that's why it's a problem that we advocate for them.
Yes.
That seems to be the issue.
That seems to be the thing right there.
You're claiming my stance. Claiming my.
Dude, Jonah, let me tell you this. LGBT people do not have issues with us advocating for the LGBT community. You know what I mean? You know why? Because in general, it's a benefit to them. Because we're advocating for them here, this seems to be an issue for you. This seems to be a problem because we held stances that you personally disagree with. And I think that's what's happening here. Because otherwise, why would you
when
care?
they come after children, I have a problem with it.
Right, Jonah.
They're
Yes, we know. Yeah. Because yes, we know. We get it.
Yeah.
Because there's trans people on every corner giving out candy, trying to lure children.
A 15-year-old child does not have a fully developed brain. A 15-year-old child does not have a fully developed brain.
Well, there's some callers on the show that don't have a fully developed brain either, Jonah. But that's the world. That's the world that we live in. I'm letting you go. Point is, we advocate for causes. Yeah, that's what we do. We're activists. That's part of the deal. Some people don't. Yeah.
I think I knocked my earphone right out.
You did. I mean, Kelley, you did call it right, because if somebody says, "Oh, I don't like it how they include other agendas," and the example you give is LGBT, that is a red flag.
That's why I brought my bigotry duck. It quacks like a bigot.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. But I think people, when they see, oh wait, why are atheists talking about this other stuff? This isn't related to that, but it is related. It is inherently related. It's what's important. Again, I'm not just interested in this philosophical conundrum of whether a God or not exists. Okay, I've already figured that out for myself. I'm not over here talking about that every single day. I mean, we do talk about it a lot. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not the only thing. The reason why I'm here, why I'm doing this, is because I want to help people to the best of my ability, whether that includes people deconstructing from the church, whether it includes people figuring out their sexual orientations or gender identities. I want to be there for those people, because inevitably the church plays a role in people's ideas for what those constructs even mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whether if you're trying to divorce yourself from that or figure out how to make it work with that. I mean, there's a lot of LGBT folks who are still part of the church and still identify as that. I mean, I'd rather that and have them be happy for themselves than think that they can't exist as a body, as a political body, as this person is saying. I mean, like, they have a problem with just people advocating for themselves, let alone us advocating for other people, and that's wrong. You know, I truly believe that's wrong. But we are out of time. Unfortunately, I want to try to get to one more caller, but caller, you'll have to call in at another time because we need to wrap up today's episode of the show. This has been a very fun time with you, Kelley. I'm so glad.
It's been a great time. I've been a blast.
I'm glad you got to come on here. I believe we do have a promo card that we'll put on for in just a second.
Oh,
but
cool.
Where can people find you at?
You can find me on the nonprofits. I'm over there all the time. I am also a host at Skeptic Hangout with Laura McGee and Richard Gilliver and Josh Entner, who are also all three nonprofits. And you can find me on the Atheist community of Discord, where I host Meet the ACA every Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah. And definitely check out the nonprofits after this episode of Talk Heathen.
Flagship
as well.
show of the ACA.
Flagship show of the ACA. Got to point that out. One thing, before we let you guys go, well, it's a couple of things, actually. We do have that fundraiser in the chat. 100% of the proceeds go directly towards the ACA. YouTube does not charge any fees, so please consider donating if you haven't already. Please like and subscribe. Enable those notifications. Hit that, smash that like button, dude. Yeah, whatever. Do the whole YouTuber thing, you know. Do the whole thing. If you want to become a member, you can again hit that join button below the video. Costs as low as 99 cents a month. Again, just another way that you can support us. And if you want to listen to audio versions of the show, link to that is in the description as well. And also, you can become a part of the community on Facebook by visiting our fan-run Facebook page. And lastly, of course, if you want to join and see I already actually talked about that. We're talking about the nonprofits. You should go check out the nonprofits. It's on the list here. We got to it early. And support the Patreon as well. Patrons, you guys rock. Thank you so much for making this show happen. We need to give some love to the fantastic, amazing, stupendous, spectacular crew that help make this program happen every single week. Crew Cam.
There's the room where all the magic happens.
That's where all the magic happens, and where the cats also secretly control all the things behind the scenes.
That's part of the magic.
A lot of people think, oh, we must be run by the Illuminati. It's actually a series of cats that completely control all the decisions being made here. Now, Kelley, for all the folks watching at home, we got to give some love rings.
Oh, yes.
You ready for this?
Yes.
Crystal-infused love rings today. All right, 3, 2, 1. Pew. There we go. Awesome. There's a little bit of delay on the you know, the camera feed doesn't actually pick up on the love thing. It's a scientific phenomenon. People are still looking into that. But there's the love rings. we've casted that for you today. Just so you know, whether or not you believe, if you are an essential worker, we want to thank you. And if you don't believe, this is your community. But if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We just don't agree.
Thanks for watching Talk Heathen, everybody. I'm Objectively Dan. We'll see you next time.
Have you ever wanted to be a host on an ACA show or be the one calling the shots behind the scenes? Are you in Austin, Texas, or at least Austin adjacent? Well, on Saturday, February 25th, make your way down to the Free Thought Library because we'll be holding open auditions for show hosts and orientations for prospective crew members. For those wanting to be hosts, you'll be able to sit in the studio where our shows are broadcast and we'll put you through your paces to see if you can be one of the new personalities of the ACA. For future crew members, you'll get hands-on experience using the equipment used for broadcast and will help us record the host auditions. If you've ever dreamed of being part of the ACA productions, then this is your chance to show us what you've got. This event is free. For more information and registration, visit tiny.cc/ACA auditions.